We have a major projection to make right now out of the United States House of Representatives. We can project that the Republican Party will win control of the lower chamber of Congress. Kevin McCarthy will become the next Speaker of the House, succeeding Nancy Pelosi. We can also project the winner of the United States Senate at this hour. We can project that the Democratic Party will retain control of the upper chamber of Congress. Chuck Schumer will continue to serve as Senate Majority Leader. This means that for the first time in Joe Biden's presidency, he will have a split Congress. President Biden announcing today through a video filmed in the Oval Office that he plans not to run for president again in 2024. This does not come as much of a surprise considering his current age. Now, the big question is when Vice President Kamala Harris will mount her 2024 campaign and whether or not she will be truly contested for the 2024 Democratic nomination. We have results coming back from a poll that Election Central conducted a few weeks ago. Let's take a look at the results of that poll right now. And on the Democratic end, no surprise to see Vice President Kamala Harris leading the pack with 32% of Democratic voters saying they would consider voting for Harris in 2024. In a distant second place is the liberal representative from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, at 16%. Transportation Secretary under the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg, comes in at 12%. And the new governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, comes in at 9%, rounding out the top tier of candidates. Let's also take a look at the second tier of candidates right now, and leading them off is Senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. She's at 8%, and she ran for president back in 2020. She was actually a front runner for quite some time. Moving on to Senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker. He's at 5% and also ran for president back in 2020. Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, and Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota, round out the second tier of candidates. Klobuchar ran for president back in 2020 as well. Finally, we do have a third tier of candidates, and leading them off is former representative from Massachusetts, Joe Kennedy III. He sits at 3%. Next is Andrew Yang at 2%. He was running for New York City mayor but lost. Then we have Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, at 2%. And finally, Beto O'Rourke at 2%, rounding out the third tier of candidates. Now let's take a look at the Republican side of this poll. And on the Republican side, there is no clear favorite, unlike on the Democratic side. But in this particular poll, Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, leads the pack with 18% of Republican voters saying they would consider voting for him in 2024. Next is former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. She sits at 15%. Former Vice President Mike Pence at 12%. And Senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, at 9%. We do not know who Donald Trump will endorse, but that could make a big difference in this race if he does endorse one of these candidates. Next, let's take a look at the second tier of Republican candidates, and leading them off is Senator from Florida, Marco Rubio. He sits at 8%. He ran for president back in 2016, and similar to Senator Elizabeth Warren on the Democratic end, he was a front runner for quite some time. Moving on to Senator from Missouri and rising star in the Republican Party, Josh Hawley. He's at 6%. Another rising star in the Republican Party is Senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott. He's at 5%. And then the son of Donald Trump Jr. rounds out this second tier at 4%. Finally, we have our third tier of candidates on the Republican end, and leading them off is Senator from Arkansas, Tom Cotton, who again is viewed by many as a rising star in the Republican Party. Next is Fox News host Tucker Carlson at 3%, Governor of South Dakota Kristi Noem at 3%, and Texas Representative Dan Crenshaw at 2%. Crenshaw was again considered a rising star in the Republican Party for a long time. We'll see how many of these candidates on both the Democratic and Republican ends actually end up running for president and how much success they are able to find. We have our first campaign announcement, and it will come out of Pierre, South Dakota. Governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, has launched a 2024 bid for president as a Republican. Noem is considered a very conservative Republican and could find success in this 2024 Republican primary. We have another campaign announcement, this time out of the state of South Carolina. Former governor of South Carolina and ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, has announced a 2024 bid for president today. She is seen as a front runner to many, as she can appeal to conservatives and moderates of the Republican Party. We have a big announcement coming out of Washington, D.C. today. The Vice President Kamala Harris has announced her 2024 bid for president today. She is almost definitely going to be the front runner for the Democratic nomination in 2024. The question is, can she hold that position? We have another campaign announcement. Former representative from Hawaii and 2020 presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard has launched a 2024 bid for president today. She ran for president back in 2020 as a Democrat, but this time she will be doing it as an independent. She split from the Democratic Party in 2020. Another big campaign announcement coming out of South Bend, Indiana. Pete Buttigieg has decided to run for president again in 2024. He was the transportation secretary under the Biden administration, but also ran for president in 2020 and found lots of success and energized lots of people to go out and vote. We'll see how he does in 2024. The moderate senator from Nebraska, Ben Sasse, has announced his 2024 bid for president today. He will be running trying to appeal to the moderate half of the Republican Party, but low name recognition could hurt him in early primary contests. Finally, let's take a look at the candidates who have launched presidential runs so far. On the Democratic end, we have Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of Transportation under the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg. Moving on to the Republican side, we have South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, former governor of South Carolina and ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, and finally, Senator from Nebraska, Ben Sasse, and we have one independent, Tulsi Gabbard. We'll see how this list of candidates grows as we move on with the primary series. Finally, please fill out the poll in the description below. Basically, all it is an approval rating poll so you can fill out your party ID, and then you can fill out your opinion of Kristi Noem, Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Buttigieg, and Ben Sasse, all the candidates who have announced campaigns for president so far in the series. When you're done, just click submit. Remember, this form is completely anonymous, but please fill it out. You can send it to your friends as well if you want to. Other than that, I'll see you for the next video.